What's up, guys? Welcome to White Wall Friends English.
A lot of people say a lot of things about learning English, and just frankly, some of them are not true.
Part of it is marketing tries to really get our hopes up, like, oh, you can learn English in just a few months. You can memorize 1,000 words, these 1,000 words or 10,000 words, and you're going to be able to speak fluently. Sorry, no, it doesn't work that way.
Today's video is going to be cold water to the face as we talk about 10 myths that we've heard over and over again, starting with you can learn English in a few months. Realistically, guys, learning a language takes a long time. And actually, one of the things that we've heard from people that have been way far into the language game that they wish they would have done is started years, not months, years earlier so that their English or their language would be at a better place now. It is a time game. It is a timed game. And if you started earlier, seriously started earlier, like years earlier, language would be at a good place. But we're talking years, not months.
There's other variables at play as well. It also depends on where are you now with your English? What is your language background and how close is it to English? How many of the phonemes exist also in your language? How different is the grammar structure from your language? How intuitive the word for this thing versus the word for this thing, and how comparable are the cultures so that once you learn the words, are you able to fairly use it naturally to be able to say something in a culturally appropriate way, or are you going to have to work at that too? There's a lot to unpack here, and really how different those variables are is going to determine a little bit more of how long it takes. Also how much time you can actually give studying English is another thing, or practicing English, and whether you have people around you to practice with on a daily basis, not just once a week. There's a lot of things to unpack with this one.
Number 2 is getting a high score on the TOEFL, the IELTS, or the TOEIC means that you're an excellent English speaker.
No, we've talked to a lot of people who have gotten some really high scores and they could not do a conversation very well.
When we lived abroad, that was a big thing. We met a lot of people that passed a lot of tests that I thought were very authoritative and very amazing. Like, wow, you did such a great job. You got such a high score on that. And then when I would ask them simple questions like, oh, where did you study in America? They would blank. And it's just to show that tests don't equal fluency. Just because you pass a test doesn't mean that you can call somebody on the phone and have a fluent conversation with them. It's a totally different skill set. Taking a test is its own skill set.
The other thing, too, is when you study for a test, to pass a test or to get a high score on a test, you need to be studying how the test works and what it's looking for. When you're just speaking English, there's not really an ulterior motive there unless you're trying to do something like persuasion or marketing or something like that. If you're just trying to have a conversation with somebody in the grocery store, you don't have a structure to rely on. Not really. Even if you did have a structure for you, the other person probably doesn't adhere to that same structure. So one of the things that you would have to pay attention to is slurred speech, mumbling, people talking in a distracted way, kind of halfway looking at the phone, halfway listening to you. The way English goes in the real world is very different from what you hear on a test.
You definitely have to study like the TOEFL English. You know what I mean? Like it's a TOEFL, TOEIC, IELTS English that you have to zero in on.
Yes.
And then that's largely, I'm not going to say useless, but it's not easy to incorporate into daily speech.
The third myth is that you need to focus on all the skills at the same time. Reading, writing, listening, and speaking. No, you don't have to do that.
It's also would be really difficult. At Fluency Fast Track, our program, we do try to incorporate the skills, but to do all of them together would be incredibly difficult to do in a way that it's very natural. Like, how often am I going to read a recipe, talk about a recipe, write a new recipe, and then listen to a video talking about how to cook it? Very rarely. In most cases, in reality, I'm going to be talking to a person, or in most cases, I'm going to be looking up a recipe online. I'm not going to be doing all of these things at once. Just in practice, it's not very feasible, but also by studying, it's very much not feasible. It's very difficult to get every single skill in the same exercise at the same time. That's why a lot of programs, they focus on one or more than the other. They focus on reading and writing, or speaking and listening, or maybe the productive sounds. They focus on speaking and writing, or the receptive skills, the listening and the reading. It's very difficult to incorporate them all into one giant mass and study that mass at the same time.
There's also this thing where you want to study like you are a jack of all trades, where you want to dabble in all of the things halfway with the little time that you have in order to increase them all just a little bit by a little. The problem with that is that you're actually not really growing very well in any one thing. You're just taking your little bit of time. Like, say, if you have 20 minutes a day and you put 5 minutes toward each skill, yes, you are going to grow a little bit, but it's not going to be near as much as if you put 20 minutes into the same thing day in and day out. Maybe you're going to focus on improving your listening skills this month, and you're actually going to get some concrete skills that you're going to continue using while you focus instead the next month on writing. So you definitely want to take your time and use it strategically.
Number 4 is you can use translation tools. Learning the language isn't necessary. The problem with this, as you guys probably will know, is that there are going to be a lot of cases where those translation tools either are not available, they don't work as well, AI is not going to give you the thing that you need, or there's just going to be a miscommunication. You Google translated that email and you're like, oh, I know what it means, so here you go. And you read it wrong, or Google Translate read it wrong. And the reality is, when you are studying a language, yes, there are tools to help you, but they are tools to help you. They are not the language themselves. Don't look to ChatGPT to translate all of your documents for you, because I promise you, you will find errors and they will make mistakes. And you, if you send it back through ChatGPT, it will make mistakes. So what you need to focus on is actually knowing the language, so that at least you can use the tools and look at it and say, that's not right. Let's do it again. Let's try it a different way.
The main thing here is this really is dependent upon what you're going for in English. If you're not trying to learn the language at all, not really, then yeah, use your ChatGPT, use your translator, use survival English, whatever you need to do. But if you're trying to get into a context where you can lead trainings, where you can be influential in the workplace, where you can be a leader, you need to have grasp of the language. You need to really kind of grasp it in a way, because languages do not directly translate into one another. One word's meaning can have the same meaning or shades of that meaning in another language, or maybe it means something else entirely, or there's just no word for it. That's why ChatGPT is a little bit dangerous to use at times, because it's going to try to translate things for you, and it may or may not use the proper thing, or it might have to switch to something in the wrong formality or the wrong tone, or it might say something a bit awkwardly in order to, try to keep the essence of what you're saying. It doesn't always do very well. I actually spend a lot of time undoing work that people have done with ChatGPT, trying to say, hey, I want it to say this. Did it hit the mark? No, not at all. Actually, we need to change all of it, actually, or we need to change quite a bit of it. So this is something to pay attention to as a language teacher who is regularly dealing with editing work with stuff that's been run through ChatGPT. Guys, ChatGPT is not perfect. It's not that great. And if you're trying to rely on that for all of your essays and your research papers or your dissertation, please don't. Save yourself, or hire a really good editor who's willing to rewrite 90% of it for you.
The 5th myth that we hear a lot is you need to live in a country that speaks English in order to learn English well. Man, if I could get a penny every time somebody said that, I would be a rich man, because the truth is, it does help living in a country. That's true. It helps if you utilize the environment around you. But we have known so many people that have lived in an English-speaking country and their English has not gotten any better. Either they've secluded themselves away, or they've only used a portion of their English skill, like at work, and then after that, they don't really do anything. They get really good at being a teacher, teaching their presentations, but everything else is pretty much undeveloped. We see this a lot. And we also see this being broken by people who are abroad, who live in their own native country, and their English is awesome. So this is a complete myth. The environment does help, but the main thing is to use the environment. You do not absorb it through osmosis. You have to interact with the environment in order for you to grow from it. And so for you guys, whether you're in an English-speaking country or not in an English-speaking country, the application is the same. Look around and figure out a way you can interact with your environment to increase your language skills.
Myth number 6, you need a great memory to study English. No. Traditional methods, grammar translation method. Yeah, you have to memorize these grammar patterns. You have to memorize these vocabulary. You have to memorize all of these things and then try to speed up the path from your brain to your mouth somehow while you were actually speaking. No, you can learn a language, but it's not an efficient way to learn a language. Also, what happens if you go for a year or two without actually speaking the language? It's going to slip with your memory. It's going to slip as you're not practicing, as you're not bringing it up to keeping things reinforced in your short-term memory, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose it all. So instead, what is better is learning the principles of the language. How does the language work? By actually using it and actually practicing by doing. Your brain will remember things so much better that way, but it doesn't require perfect memory to do it.
Amber and I, we have different skill sets. She does have a really good memory, and I do not as well. But the great thing about language is that it is a practiced, spoken, applicable thing. And so it's not just a matter of, did I take that test right? It's, can I use it? Can I use it? Can I intake it? And it's that practice of a people that have spent a lot of time actually using it that shines through, especially when maybe they don't remember that word. They're still near fluent. They can just look over to that person and be like, hey, what's that word? It means like this. It's kind of like that. And they're like, oh, that's that word. You meant to say duffel bag. And it's like, oh, okay, got it.
Learning language by doing creates so much more strong connections in your mind. It actually works better with how your brain develops. Even as an adult, learning by doing gives you a lot more hooks for your mind to remember. It can remember the place where you used that term, or it can remember the way that you felt when you used that term, or it can remember the effect on somebody else's face when you use that term. Whatever it is, it gives you other things to latch onto so that you are more likely to remember something.
Myth number 7 is language learning is easier as kids, so as an adult, you might as well not bother because you can't learn it. Dang it.
Yes and no. Yes, kids developing minds. Before 3 years old, they're making 1 million new neural connections every second. So yeah, they learn language faster and they make connections better than us. But 90% of their brain is already developed by the time they're 5. So some people say, if you're younger than 5, great, give them all the languages, expose them to everything. Okay, but yeah, now that they're in elementary school, we could go back down to grammar translation method. Okay, we're going to do lectures now, and you're going to take tests, and that's how you're going to learn language. It doesn't really work with the brain very well to do that. Yes, they can do it. It's not that great. But adults have this edge over kids, though. They've learned a language before. They've learned the structure of language, and they know grammar, which gives them a leg up in a lot of ways. They can learn the mechanics of how a language works, and that actually helps them learn language a little bit better, or at least more efficiently. Kids, you just take them and throw them into a room and force them to sit there for hours at a time, listening to the language because they're kids. They have time. We adults who are working, we don't have time. Well, if we had just as much time, we would probably learn the language faster than they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And also a big thing is retention. Kids, yes, they might be able to pick something up very easily, but they are also in the process of pruning a lot of the things that they learn as well. And so by the time they get to be, let's say, 18, they've been learning this language to 18. Beyond 18, if they don't learn it, they're going to lose a lot of it, guys. They may have grown up in the language, but by the time they actually are an adult where nobody's forcing them to learn English anymore, they're going to drop a lot. Adults, we know how valuable time is. And so if we have the time, we're going to use the time. We're going to remember that time. Even if our language will slip a little bit, the point is that their retention is a lot lower than adults' retention. And so, no, it's not pointless to learn a language as an adult. In fact, there's a case to be made that if you start learning a language after you've already learned your own language and learned the structure of your own language, you can use that, like Amber's saying, as a fulcrum or a pivot point to say, now I can learn English better because I know what an adjective is. I know what a noun is. And it helps me to understand that in English, they have subject-verb agreement. That's not in my language, but I know what a subject and a verb is. It really helps. It really helps.
Myth number 8 is that learning languages requires that you are good at learning languages. No. There are have-tos, guys. There are have-tos.
Yes, absolutely. Not everybody has the language kind of mindset. The thing that Amber just said just now is so true, guys. There are some people that honestly, they're not terribly good at language, but they have to be good at language. They're the people that didn't want to study Spanish in high school. They're the people that didn't want to study Japanese, but their parents made them study. Or the people that have immigrated to an English-speaking country that didn't have a choice. It's not like they wanted to be there in that country, and everybody looks at them like, wow, you're so lucky that you're in that English-speaking country. They don't want to be there. But the have-tos still exist. So for a lot of people, they learn a language out of necessity. It's not because they're good at learning a language. It's not because they're naturally born with this innate gift of just learning language. They're a polyglot at birth. It's not like that. Language takes time. And yes, some people find it easier than others, but that doesn't mean that you should not pursue something just because it's a little bit more challenging. We know several people in our lives that seem like they can just pick something up and just run with it. I sometimes I am one of those people, but
With language.
with language, but that doesn't mean that I should be a polyglot. Why? There's no reason for me to be a polyglot. The question is, how can we use the skills that we have been given, the context we have been given, the environment we have been given to pursue language?
If you are telling yourself that you're not good at learning English and that's why it's so hard, wipe that off your slate. That is a mindset problem. You're holding yourself back. You believe something about yourself. You believe that you're not a language learner, and it's making yourself resist so much. And that's just making it even harder overall. You need to take that and you need to shake it out and get rid of it, because you don't have to be good at learning languages to learn a language. Anybody can learn a language. But yes, some people do it easier than others. And it's just like math. Some people are just better at math than others. It doesn't mean that you can't do math. Even people with dyslexia, where they flip letters and numbers back and forth, they can still do math. They just have to do it in a different way, or they have to be a little bit slower. They can still do it. It's the same with language. So stop resisting. Stop telling yourself that you can't, or that you don't have enough skills to do it, or that you're not good at it. Those are things that are trying to hold you back. That's you trying to stop yourself. Don't listen to yourself.
The ninth myth that we're going to talk about today is spending money on broad approaches to learning a language, to have these big name brands, or using a bunch of these free resources like books or apps or something like that is enough to learn English. YouTube is a classic example of this. Some people think that if they just watch enough YouTube, this is a YouTube video, but they think if they watch enough YouTube, that will be enough for them to learn English. Maybe if I do this parrot thing, maybe if I just do this mimicking thing, then I can learn English. The fact is, guys, if you are not producing English, if you are not using English, your listening could be pretty good. Your reading could even be pretty good. But the moment you put a pen to a paper or you open your mouth to speak, it shows that you haven't been practicing. You may be fluent in YouTube, but you're not fluent in English.
We're not saying that these methods don't work. I know somebody who made his whole career in computer engineering based off of YouTube. You can do it. You just have to put so much more time into free resources for them to actually give you the result that you want. You can eventually become fluent in English, assuming that you're practicing. You could be recording videos of yourself and taking notes and watching back and taking notes and improving yourself that way. You can absolutely do that. That is a long, hard, lonely road. And already language learning, if you're trying to go for fluency, is already a long, hard, lonely road. So you would be just magnifying that intensity, that intense loneliness if you learned it that way. And still, being able to stand in the room with somebody and hold a conversation is still a skill. It's something that you have to learn by time, actually doing that skill. You can practice with an AI, you can practice with YouTube, and you can mimic back and forth, and you can take videos of yourself and have yourself hold a conversation, but it's not going to do as much as you think, because being able to actively listen to what somebody said, understanding what they said and forming a response and giving that response at the same time, that's a skill, and it takes time to do that.
The last myth we're going to talk about today is that learning English gets easier at the advanced levels.
I'm sorry. No.
It doesn't. I would say in some sense it can be more enjoyable because you can understand more of the world around you. You can dive into deeper things. You're not just talking about, how are you today, Tom? You're actually having some deeper conversations. You're diving into native materials. That can be more enjoyable. Easier, not the word I would use.
No, in the advanced levels, you're starting to get a little bit into nuances. So you may find at the advanced level that the word you've been using for the last 2 years actually comes across a bit weird the way that you've been saying it, or that you've been using it in the wrong context, or something like that. And mistakes, guys, we make mistakes. We break the rules of English all the time as native speakers. It's not black and white. It's not hardline rules. But that's the thing that you start to have enough English to understand at the advanced levels, is that there's a massive gray area, and you've got to learn how to navigate it. The advanced levels take a lot of time. I would argue that they take probably 80% of your language journey time. If you're going to put it on a scale and say, here I didn't know any English, here I'm fluent, 80% of that time is probably in the advanced levels.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. English does absolutely get harder. like she was saying, the nuances, the grammatical patterns, the fact that we break language, the fact that language changes by the time you get there and to the advanced levels. There's a lot of things that make the advanced levels way more difficult. At the beginner, you're like, that's a cat. That was a win. That was a win, guys. I just said an English sentence out, so it's a win. And in the advanced levels, you're asking yourself the overcomplicated questions of what's the difference between a dog and a canine? Not just vocabulary, but also the nuances of the other person. Why didn't they feel that word as much as I feel that word? Why did this mean a lot to me, but not to them?
Or what's the difference in between caring for somebody or caring about somebody? Welcome to the advanced English levels.
All right, this video was a little bit longer, but it's because honestly, the language learning journey is fraught with pitfalls, because some people are always trying to tell you this is the get-rich-quick way to learn a language. This is the very expedited way to learn a language. Do it like this, do it like that. And we all know intuitively that language learning is going to be a long process. Don't get sidetracked. Don't get sidetracked by these marketing messages that will tell you, hey, it just takes 4 easy steps for you to learn English. No, it doesn't. It takes a long time, full of hard work. And honestly, one of the biggest things that changes between now and then is that you intentionally start today and keep going on that journey. Time is against you. And so what you need to do is you need to find a way to use that time wisely, whether it's through something like a program like Fluency Fast Track or somebody that's just kind of working with you along the way to kind of help keep you accountable. You need somebody there. You need something there that's more than just these free automated things to get you to fluency much faster, because it takes a long time, guys.
But it's a journey worth taking, and it's a lot of fun overall. It is a lot of hard work, but it can be very rewarding. With that said, that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.